Ukrainian forces shattered Russian artillery in record-breaking numbers, crippling Moscow's plans for a massive offensive in the Borova-Lyman sector. Now, as General Drapatyi and the elite 3rd Assault Corps assemble a ferocious defensive line, incredible losses will become an inevitable reality for the Russian offensive plan to advance to the Oskil and eliminate the major Ukrainian bridgehead there. To achieve this, they are mobilizing a massive number of troops and equipment in this sector, aiming to establish a significant numerical superiority over the Ukrainian defenders. However, Russian offensive planning relies heavily on massive artillery barrages to pave the way for mechanized and infantry assaults. To take advantage of this, Ukrainians have prioritized destroying Russian artillery, aiming to disrupt Russian preparations by preventing them from conducting large preparatory barrages. To reduce the risk of Ukrainian counter-battery fire and destruction by FPV drones and heavy-lift octocopters, Russian artillery is positioned 12 to 15 kilometers behind the front lines. However, concealment remains difficult even in these rear areas, as the mostly towed artillery guns are constrained to emplacements with heavy concealment, such as the forest strips along the Krasna River, according to Euromaidan Press. Ukrainian drone operators use these constraining factors to make well-educated estimates of Russian firing positions, intensify drone reconnaissance in these directions, and confirm and destroy targets. Euromaidan Press says that Russians often follow their artillery doctrine, which says to relocate only after coming under fire, an inflexible approach that only compounds their losses, as accurate Ukrainian drone strikes often only need one hit to disable or destroy the enemy gun. As a result, Ukraine destroyed 1,644 Russian artillery pieces and mortars in March alone, over 3 times the monthly average of the previous 2 years. By purely targeting Russian artillery, Ukrainians are forcing the Russians to increasingly relocate and conceal their heavy guns, which significantly weakens the effectiveness of Russian fire support in and of itself. The sharp rise in Ukrainian combat effectiveness along the Eastern Front is closely tied to General Drapatyi's appointment as commander of the Khortytsia Operational Strategic Group, which encompasses all of Kharkiv, Luhansk and Donetsk oblasts, according to Euromaidan Press. Since Drapatyi took command, Ukrainian forces have improved both their defensive coordination and battlefield resilience, resulting in a significant increase in Russian losses and operational costs. Already in the first month of Drapatyi's appointment, Russians required 17 assaults to take 1 square kilometer, more than double of what it was before. By March, it soared to 36 attacks per square kilometer, highlighting that any surge in Russian offensive action this summer will likely result in an even higher attrition rate for Russian forces. Overall, Russian forces in the Borova-Lyman sector are preparing for a major offensive by massing artillery and experienced troops. However, they are suffering heavy losses from Ukrainian counter-battery fire already before they can launch their assaults. Given the persistent attrition of Russian artillery and the surge of new recruits into the 3rd Assault Corps, Russians are likely to encounter great difficulties in breaching Ukrainian defenses once they decide to launch their summer offensive.
Ukrainian army has destroyed a Russian Tu-22M3 long-range bomber worth $100 million a few days ago, Commander-in-Chief of Ukrainian Armed Forces Oleksandr Syrsky said on Wednesday. A few days ago, our successful actions destroyed the long-range Tu-22M3 bomber. And our drone hit it. The cost is about $100 million, he said in an interview with local media. SYRSKY did not specify which type of drone was used to down the bomber or where the strike took place. Kremlin has not confirmed destruction of its fixed-wing aircraft during fightings this month. However, on April 2, the Russian Defense Ministry reported that its Tu-22M3 bomber crashed in Siberia due to what it described as a technical failure. 4 crew members were forced to eject, while the pilot was killed during the crash. Being a Soviet-era strategic bomber, Tu-22M3 is designed for both nuclear and conventional strikes and is capable of carrying Kh-22, Kh-15, and Kh-32 missiles, as well as Kab-500 guided bombs. Tu-22M3 bombers have been widely used in Russia's air strikes against Ukraine since the start of full-fledged invasion 3 years ago. It should be noted that Ukrainian Air Force shot down a Russian Tu-22M3 bomber in Russia's Stavropol region in April last year. A Chinese national captured by Ukrainian fighters in Donetsk region said he had joined the ranks of the Russian army after paying around $2,200 to an intermediary in his country. Ukrainska Pravda reported on Wednesday, with reference to the Communications Department of Ukraine's Luhansk Operational Tactical Group, that the Chinese captive was motivated by promises of Russian citizenship and to become a professional soldier. He received military training in Russian-held Luhansk region without the help of any interpreter, using gestures and over the phone. He was detained by Ukraine's 81st Separate Mechanized Brigade near Bilohorivka in Donetsk along with another Chinese national. The Chinese man's capture was first announced by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on Tuesday. Zelensky shared the video of the captive and said these were 2 of many more Chinese soldiers fighting within the Russian army. The Ukrainian leader furthermore accused Kremlin of directly or indirectly involving China in the war and urged Beijing to respond to the incident. Responding to Zelensky's remarks, official Beijing on Wednesday verified reports that Ukrainian forces captured 2 Chinese nationals fighting alongside Russian forces in Ukraine. The Chinese government has always asked its citizens to stay away from areas of armed conflict and avoid involvement in armed conflicts in any form, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Lin Jian stated. The capture of 2 Chinese fighters was the first evidence of Chinese nationals' involvement in Russia's war of invasion in Ukraine. It should be noted that China has declared itself as a neutral party and a potential mediator in the war in Ukraine despite the growing economic ties between Moscow and Beijing.